Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old 4th Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Heading into the weekend and talking about things that may not interest you, honestly, because voter turnout for races like the one I'm going to talk about first are usually very low. And sometimes you wonder if that's on purpose, if that's by design. Public Service Commission. Yeah. Who dreams as a child of growing up to be, you know what? When I grow up, I'm going to be a public service commissioner. Yeah. Nobody grows up wanting to be a public service commissioner. But these are important races, and they literally affect your household budget every month. There are going to be a couple of races for seats on Georgia's Public Service Commission this year, which in and of itself is a bit unusual, and we don't have top-tier federal races, statewide races. These are all going to appear on municipal ballots. And even then, there may be many Georgians who don't even have municipal elections. This is the one thing that they'll need to go in and vote for. Do you anticipate high turnout for that? I don't. Nevertheless, these are important races, should be high-profile races. It'll be interesting to see as we get closer to the general election in November for these two seats, just how impactful the media marketing push for these candidates will be. Stanley Dunlap at Georgia Recorder did a couple of great pieces. One about the launching of a utility watchdog group, and a former candidate who was running for one of these seats back in 2022 deciding, no, I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to form a watchdog group and bark anytime the PSC and or Georgia Power or any electric utility throughout the state, there are cooperatives as well, needs to be spotlighted. Anything that they do that goes out of line with regards to serving the consumer versus the bottom line of the utility. Dunlap reporting this was, by the way, a week ago. Several candidates are vying to defeat a pair of incumbent Republican Georgia Public Service Commissioners in an election that challengers say will become a referendum on rising Georgia power bills. Consumer watchdogs worry that the state's largest utility will continue to raise rates on residential customers as it girds for a wave of data center growth that will spike demand for electricity over the next decade. You heard that right. The watchdogs are concerned that Georgia Power will charge residents more for data center use. Dunlap's reporting continues. Qualifying for the Public Service Commission races wrapped up Thursday, April 3rd, with Commissioner Tim Echols, who represents a wide swath of East Georgia, and Commissioner Fitz Johnson. So you'll see the Augusta Metro. There'll be a maybe some marketing. You would think this is going to be, I think, a contentious race. And Commissioner Fitz Johnson, who represents Metro Atlanta, declaring their re-election bids. Echols will face challenger Lee Munns in the June 17 Republican primary for the Commission's District 2 seat. Lee Munns is from my home county of Columbia County. I believe he was on the Board of Education, I want to say. The winner of the GOP primary will advance to a November 4th general election against Savannah Democrat Alicia Johnson, who is unopposed in her primary. The other Johnson mentioned in the article, Fitz Johnson, the incumbent from Metro Atlanta, will face the winner of the June 17th. Again, this is middle of the summer, a primary. You can anticipate low turnout, right? This June 17th District 3 Democratic primary between DeKalb County clean energy advocate Peter Hubbard, former Atlanta State Representative Keisha Shawn Waits, technology advisor Robert Jones, and Daniel Blackman, who will wage a second campaign after narrowly losing the 2020 election in a runoff to longtime Commissioner Lauren Bubba McDonald. The PSC general election will be included on ballots for the November 4th municipal election. Again, that's East Georgia and Metro Atlanta. So not the entire state, but two districts that serve a large portion of the state's population. And those two seats will be 205 on Georgia's Public Utilities Commission, Public Service Commission. Dunlap continues, the state election is taking place on an irregular schedule for PSC races that typically result in staggered 6-year terms in 5 commission districts. This year's primary and general election will mark the first time since 2020 that PSC contests will appear on Georgia ballots. Eccles' 2022 election was delayed by a lawsuit challenging the commission's at-large district election process as being unfair to black voters. Commissioners represent and must reside in, Dunlap reports, one of the 5 districts, but are elected statewide. So how about I didn't know that? Okay, learning as I go. Stanley educating me. That's, I don't know, a little weird. It's not very strange. All right, this year's PSC candidates said that they'll work hard to drum up interest because turnout will be lower, exactly right, than when there are higher profile races for governor, Congress, and the White House on the ballot. Mm-hmm. The challengers say they'll be campaigning as the best candidate to fight on behalf of the public in Georgia Power cases that the current 5-member Republican commissioners have routinely given the green light to increase utility costs and fossil fuels as well. Oh yeah, that's definitely been a thing, a hallmark of this commission in recent years. I mean, seriously, I think it's fair to say that the commission has been something of a rubber stamp for the quarterly profit reporting Georgia Power, while our rates continue to skyrocket. Eccles, who is running for his 3rd term on the commission, this has got to be not a good time to be an incumbent, right? Said he'll campaign on his support of Georgia Power's reinvestment in its power grid and natural gas system. Eccles said he's been supportive of clean energy technologies like electric vehicles and solar energy, and is proud of voting in favor of increasing affordability initiatives for Georgia Power seniors and low-income customers, saying, we also want to continue to make Georgia the best place to do business. Business meaning data centers. Who's going to pay for that? Because when these companies come, they provide jobs. And when companies compete like Hyundai and Gulfstream and Savannah, the consumer wins because they make more per hour. He's not mentioning utility rates. He's mentioning jobs, and jobs mean you make more money. Okay. Through his career in the construction industry, Lee Munn says he learned how to build power plants in the most cost-effective way. Interesting. Munn's, okay, here it is. Yeah, served 5 years on the Georgia Professional Standards Commission as a former Columbia County School Board member. I thought I remembered his name. Munn said state regulators will have important decisions to make on the growth of mega data centers, the driving force in Georgia Power's 2025 calls for significantly increasing its energy capacity over the next decade. He tells Dunlap, in Georgia, we've got aging facilities. We're fortunate. We've got 2 nuclear power reactors that have come on board. But the thing that's concerned me as I followed that process was the significant cost overruns. Alicia Johnson said her 25 years of policy advocacy in Savannah will help her pursuit of more clean, sustainable, and affordable energy in Georgia. She criticized the commission's approval of 6 Georgia Power rate hikes. 6 since 2022. Saying, we believe that the underlying cost can be assumed by the companies themselves and not rolled over into the homes of everyday Georgia citizens who are now choosing between prescriptions and groceries, who are making choices between paying their rent or their mortgage and getting gas. Now in the other race, Dunlap reports, Fitz Johnson was appointed by Governor Brian Kemp in 2021 to fill a vacancy on the commissions and will stand for re-election for the first time. Heading into his first bid to keep his seat on the regulatory panel, Fitz Johnson acknowledges the pushback from many Georgia Power customers about higher utility bills. Will he see it at the ballot box, though? That's the question here. He said it's important for the PSC to properly balance the needs of taxpayers while Georgia Power's long-term integrated resource plan case and the electric rate cases are decided this year. He said as part of our rule with the data centers, they're going to have to guarantee that contract so we don't have the overbuild of infrastructure. Georgia Power, and I'm sure the power companies around the state, are doing a lot of pre-planning to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves to make sure that the fit is just right. It's like word salad. What is he saying there? Johnson attributed some of the rising utility costs to inflation and said he hopes to see rates stabilize under the Trump administration. One of One of his combatants, Daniel Blackman, spent the last few years serving under President Joe Biden as a regional administrator for the Environmental Protection Agency, where he implemented $3.5 billion in federal funding for projects that includes electrifying school buses and for water infrastructure in DeKalb County. He said he aims to add new transparency to the extent that data centers are boosting household utility rates, while advocating for low-income energy assistance programs and helping build a secure electric grid that makes up the network of infrastructure that powers homes and businesses. He said, "Our grid is extraordinarily important. Whether we're protecting it from a national security risk or an extreme weather event, my goal is to campaign on a platform that ensures we can have a reliable grid without overburdening the ratepayers." Keisha Shawn Waits, an Atlanta Democrat who served on the Georgia House of Representatives from 2012 to 2017. She resigned from the House in September 2017 to make a run for chair of the Fulton County Commission before finishing in second place. After being elected to the Atlanta City Council in 21, we've had her on the show actually, Waits resigned in 2024 to launch a bid for Fulton County Superior Court clerk. Hubbard, who works as a clean energy advocate for nonprofit Georgia Center for Energy Solutions, said he's running for the District 3 seat since the PSC, quote, ignores evidence he's presented while intervening in Georgia Power Company's integrated resource plan cases since 2019. Hubbard has pledged to campaign in a campaign statement that he will, quote, put an end to the grift and disinformation that are raising your power bills. He said residential power bills in Georgia have gone up $60 per month in just the last 3 years. This is because the current Public Service Commission approves each fossil fuel plan that Georgia Power Company gives it. He's going to be a scrappy one. Robert Jones says he's prepared to become the District 3 state regulator after gaining experience in energy and communication regulations in California. That's not going to help him in a Georgia race. Don't even mention the state. You know what I mean? He criticizes the current commission's decisions allowing Georgia Power to shift some construction cost risks to consumers and the company's fight against the expansion of household rooftop solar power growth. Preach, my man, preach. Jones said as commissioner, he would advocate for rooftop solar and reducing fossil fuel use. I like what he's spitting here. I think as an investor-owned profit-making utility, they should assume more of the risk for their capital investments. I think the commission erred by rejecting net metering on solar power. Rooftop solar power is where we need to be going in Georgia. It's not a threat to Georgia Power. I'm not saying I have a favorite in that race, but I like what he's saying. Anyway, it's not on anybody's radar with all the other things going on in the world, but this is going to be an important couple of elections to watch in 2025. Go figure. And as you heard one of the candidates say, this does impact your bottom line. Your utility rates have gone up on average by $60 per month since 2022. That's more than $700 a year for your household. It's not nothing. Anyway, I'll include Stanley's article in the show notes at ronshowatl.com. Other ways to stay in the know on The Ron Show, follow us on your preferred social media platforms. At RonShowATL, I am specifically active on Facebook. Still on the Twitter X platform, believe it or not. Blue Sky, at RonShowATL on Blue Sky as well. Threads, Instagram, and Substack. God, I have got to make it a habit to put my daily episodes on Substack. I will get better at that, promise. I should find an intern, or if only I could afford to hire an assistant. I can't even hire me right now. Anyway, another story that I saw, Stanley Dunlap. In fact, this is how I got to the part where I could even tell you about the commission candidates, because there's not a whole lot of ink being spilled about Public Service Commission races, right? He had reported on the candidate slate that I just read to you a week ago in the Georgia Recorder, which I usually check each day. It's a good site. It's a really good site. There aren't paywalls. Very informative. Good reporting. So this dropped early this morning, very early, like slightly after, about the same time that Marcell Ozuna was hitting the game-winning 3-run homer last night to defeat the hated Philadelphia Phillies. We have a former Public Service Commission candidate who has decided to launch a utility consumer watchdog group. And I'm pretty excited about that. I've reached out to this young lady. Her name is Patty Duran. Stanley Dunlop reporting that this former Georgia Public Service Commission candidate has founded a utility watchdog group that she envisions as providing a new way to hold state regulators and Georgia Power accountable. It's the newly formed Georgia Utility Watch, and Dunlap reports that the initial goal is to restore a consumer advocacy group similar to the state's former Consumer Utility Council, which represented residential and small business owners in utility rate cases until it was disbanded during the state's budget cuts in response to the financial crisis in 2008. I don't know if you've heard, but the state has like a $16 billion surplus. Why we can't get that council back together, I don't understand. Oh, that's right. It advocates for the little guy. Can't have that. Among Georgia Utility Watch's goals is a prohibition against stipulated agreements between the Public Service Commission and Georgia Power until after the hearing process is completed, and to ensure data centers do not pass on their energy costs to small businesses and residential customers. Duran launched Georgia Utility Watch last week, Dunlap reports, while 8 candidates qualified for 2 PSC seats up for grabs later this year. And that's where I saw the link for the article I read for you before. Georgia Utility Watch also plans to monitor a pair of major cases set to be settled by the 5 elected members of the State Regulatory Commission this year, which will affect Georgia Power ratepayers' pocketbooks for a 7th time, as well as determine the mix of fossil fuels and renewable energy sources the company will use to generate electricity for the next few years. The PSC is scheduled to vote this year on Georgia Power's long-term 2025 Integrated Resource Plan and a 3-year electric rate case. Dunlap tells us about Duran here that she often attends PSC meetings, and who does? Seriously, who does? Where she and a number of environmental and consumer groups have been critical of the commission signing off on Georgia Power expanding and extending its use of fossil fuels in 2025, y'all, as well as the 6 rate increases that saddled the average Georgia Power household paying about $43 more per month on utility bills since the start of 2020. Okay, that one doesn't jibe with the other, but that was a candidate that said that, right? Okay. So it's somewhere between $43 and $60 a month that these rate increases have impacted your household budget every month. Can I just say, by the way, y'all, we're addicted to air conditioning. I don't know if it's the fact that is this like a getting older thing, or is it because I'm not a big person, like 5'10", 160. I don't know what it is, y'all, but like we are addicted to air conditioning. I walk into businesses all the time where, like, as soon as the door opens, the blast hits me, and I'm like, whew. We are addicted to air conditioning. We really are. If there's something I could suggest as far as like working on your utility rate usage, lowering your bills, good God, throttle back on the air conditioning. And look, I know I'm talking about businesses, but I've gone in some homes too. I tour houses as a residential realtor. I walk into some of these houses and it's like, oh my God, I'll wait outside while you look at the house, ma'am, sir, client, customer. Throttle back on the air conditioning just a little bit. I don't know what you guys are setting it at. We're set at 72 in the condo right now. And I guess I'm fortunate. I live in a concrete building, literally concrete floors, walls, ceiling. So it's a little bit of an ice box, maybe in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But we set that bad boy at 72. And honestly, when I'm home alone during the day, I can turn it off and just keep the fans on. There may come a point where I go, might need to touch it a little bit. But yeah, by and large, we are addicted to air conditioning. And I that has to be the thing, especially in the summertime. I get it. We're in Georgia. That when you're not home, it's running. When you are home, it's running. That is just an excess. To me, that is an excessive thing that we could work on. That's just me. I'm just saying. When you leave and no one's going to be home, I don't know, maybe set it at 74. Who's it going to hurt? Your pets don't care. Your cats, by the way, they love that. They love warmth. Why do you think they're sitting in the sunlight? They love warmth. So when you're leaving the house for the day, if it's just the pets, touch it up. Okay, back to Patty Duran here. Duran has also criticized the 5 sitting Republican members of the Public Service Commission for living in homes that are served by an electric membership cooperative while making decisions affecting Georgia Power's 2.8 million customers. They're not even Georgia Power customers, and they're just, go ahead and let Georgia Power raise your rates. Go ahead. I don't like that either. During Duran's professional career, she worked 10 years as the executive director of the Georgia-based Smart Energy Consumer Collaborative. She was a Democratic candidate in 2022 for the District 2 Commission seat held by incumbent Tim Echols. Her election bid became one of several PSC races stalled because of litigation and state legislative redistricting, though. Duran said she believes her role with Georgia Utility Watch will have a greater impact on utility regulation than she would making another run in a PSC election. She said, while Americans highly value market competition, Georgia operates with a stark contradiction, a state-sanctioned monopoly for Georgia Power. This leaves customers captive, she's not wrong, with no alternative utility provider. And here's what bothers me too. Not only are we saddled with that monopoly, but like even if we were to put solar powers on our rooftops, you can't detach from the grid. By law, that's mandated. Did you know that? Quick break. This is The Ron Show on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
All right, last half of the Friday Ron Show, and I'm going to dive into an op-ed that Bill Torpy wrote about former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom, who is kicking the tires on a gubernatorial run. I've had my reasons to say, no, please. And he has his as well. First things first, I want to touch on a story that we just started talking about a little bit yesterday. University of Georgia students, international students, having their visas revoked. It's also happening at Purdue University. I've seen stories. And at the University of South Carolina, according to the Post and Courier out of Charleston, South Carolina. Today, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is reporting, Jason Armesto, that 4 individuals at Emory University have had their student visas terminated by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And the school announced that yesterday. The individuals include 1 current student and 3 alumni. The alumni are still under the private Atlanta University's immigration sponsorship as they complete their postgraduate practical training. In a message to the Emory community, Lenny Liebeskind, interim executive vice president for academic affairs, said the school learned of the news Tuesday. Emory's Office of International Students and Scholar Services was checking the Federal Student and Exchange Visitor Information System, an online database the U.S. Department of Homeland Security uses to maintain information about international students, when it discovered the SEVIS records of 4 Emory community members had been terminated. Armesto gives some background here. Once a student's SEVIS record is terminated, they no longer have legal status in the country. Without legal status, they can be detained by immigration authorities. Emory's message does not detail why the visas had been revoked. Liebeskind said the university, I hope I'm saying that name right. Liebeskind said the university, quote, will continue to monitor the SEVIS database for any additional terminations and, quote, will communicate directly with impacted individuals on an ongoing basis. Other universities nationwide have had similar experiences learning the visas of their international students had been canceled only after checking SEVIS, according to news reports. As of Thursday, more than 120 colleges, I had only mentioned 3, and universities have identified more than 640 international students and recent graduates who have had their legal status changed by the State Department, according to an analysis by Inside Higher Education. As I'd mentioned yesterday, the University of Georgia confirmed to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on Tuesday that some of its international students had visas terminated, but it did not specify how many or how the school learned of the terminations. Georgia Tech, Georgia State, and Kennesaw State universities have so far declined to say if any of their international students have had their visas revoked. Recent news stories have highlighted the termination of such SEVIS records as many of our peer institutions and the potential impact on the legal status of international students and scholars. Unfortunately, members of the Emory community have now been directly affected by such terminations, Liebeskind wrote. As we continue to navigate this rapidly changing environment together, please strive to take care of yourselves and each other. I mean, that is intimidation of I, I hate to keep going back to 1930s Germany, but you're here, you're our guest, you'll say nothing. The freedom of speech, that is an inalienable right, not inalienable to you. The word alien is inalienable. Feel like standing up for someone's rights or attending a rally? Hell, I mean, if you're an international student, are you even allowed to, I don't know, help one of your classmates who's running for a student government office? Are you allowed to support them? Because you're kind of flexing your First Amendment rights. Literally, they just want students, international students, to come in here, put your head down, do your work, do nothing else, go straight to your dorm. I mean, I don't understand. It also reminds me, I was watching a Newsnight with Abby Phillip last night, and the conversation about immigration and the Trump administration realizing, oops, it turns out we actually do need immigrant labor in agriculture and in the hotel motel industry, the tropes, right? The trope positions, food processing, yada, yada, yada. And so now there is a bit of a pivot in realizing that they may have scared off more than the industry's needed. And if anybody knows about hospitality, it's Donald Trump with his hotels and his background in hospitality, one of the failed businesses. And so now they're looking for legislative carve-outs to make allowances for these situations. The thing that bothers me about that is, and I get it. You overshot, and farmers have been affected in Georgia for many years, actually, since the first Trump presidency and the state's draconian legislation targeting the undocumented immigrant. I've said this many, many times. If you don't like stray cats on your porch, don't put out kibble. I like cats. I would be that crazy cat lady if I lived out in the country or in a neighborhood where there are a lot of stray. I would do it. That's just me. I don't care. I trust cats more than people. But my point is, you can't talk about the scourge of the immigrant invasion while looking the other way when your friends who own businesses in agriculture, food processing, hospitality, your friend who might own or go to the country club, where clearly a lot of the folks working there aren't American citizens, or maybe not native born anyway, and just look the other way, not ask. It's hypocritical. But it also bothers me that we create now these carve-outs. Well, we're going to allow it so that Mr. Jimenez, Ms. Zandujar can stay here, can work here, but no pathway to citizenship. We're not even discussing that. I'm sorry, I just have a problem with that. You're welcome here as long as you're just here to work. And for sure, you best not speak up or go to a rally. You're just here to work and nothing else. You're not here to enjoy all these inalienable rights that the Constitution does provide you, because we're going to, in this, how did Mr. Liebeskein call it, this environment? In this environment, that dog won't hunt. You're not. Head down, work only. Eat your 3 squares, shower, watch Telemundo, go to bed. Get up, crack at dawn, and do it all over again. It's ill-fitting. How else can I say it? I used to say, this is not who we are as a nation, and I've been saying a lot lately that, no, this is who we are as a nation. Serve our interests, take care of us, do what we need at the meager pay we're going to allow, in the squalor that we carve out for you to live in, or whatever you can afford to rent on your own. Paying property taxes, by the way. paying taxes. That's right. They're taxpayers. Hate to tell you guys this on the right. All that squabbling about, oh, they're eating up all our... Yeah, they're paying taxes. Shut up. They're paying taxes just like you are. But deriving no pathway to citizenship, should they want it. And I'm not going to presume that they all do, but what if they did? Carve-outs for the work and the substandard pay. Otherwise, Americans would be doing the jobs, right? But no carve-outs in that legislation that allows for earning a pathway to citizenship. Sorry, I think that's bullshit. Okay, next segment. Keisha Lance Bottoms, former Atlanta mayor. Her tenure as mayor was a little shaky. She wants to run for governor of the state of Georgia now. And I think the response is lukewarm. Bill Torpey has a lukewarm response. We'll dive into that next on The Ron Show. All right, we're in the home stretch, the final segment of The Ron Show for the week. That means I get to wake up tomorrow and sleep. No, I've got softball practice. But then on Sunday, I get to sleep. No. The team I coach has games at 8:45 a.m. It's okay. I'm fine. It's not like I didn't sign up for that, right? I find ways to enjoy my weekend to take my mind off of all the shit you hear me covering during the work week, because Ron needs a break too. Listen, I from the minute that I heard that former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is kicking around the idea of running for governor, my immediate reaction was, yeah. I moved to Atlanta in 2018, and even while not living in Atlanta, being a native Georgian, someone who grew up in the state of Georgia, I've always kept my eye on state politics. Because I pretty much had since, I don't know, high school. You don't just get interested in something and then lose interest because you're not there, right? I mean, some people do, but nonetheless, well, I mean, you clearly hear that I'm plugged into politics. The Keisha Lance Bottoms tenure as mayor gives everyone that same recollection, that same, through not completely all her own faults. Okay? That being mayor during COVID, being mayor during George Floyd protests, she didn't ask for that. She also didn't ask to be mayor while the state is governed by a governor who clearly took every opportunity to show his disdain for her being mayor of Atlanta in so many overt and egregious ways. I mean, how many times did we hear, well, if you ain't going to fix it, I'm going to. And Kemp would throw in some state troopers or, make a show of the situation. I'm always sort of baffled by the fact that we don't see enough pushback from municipalities like Atlanta or my hometown of Augusta or any city of any size. Because especially in a red state, those cities are usually more liberally leaning politically than the rest of the state. And the state, the state holds the whip, right? They're ready to crack that whip on those blue environs at any point in time just to make a show of the ideological difference. To point to them as, you guys look at all the homeless. Never mind that the homeless don't all come from that blue bubble in the Red Sea, right? And never, what was it? Was it Houston Gaines who wanted to file the bill this past legislative session to punish big cities for having a homeless problem? Like literally giving property owners the opportunity to take a property tax break if they felt the city wasn't addressing panhandling and homelessness good enough. The idea of punishing the city by taking more resources away so that the city has less resources to deal with homelessness and panhandling, to me was just baffling. Instead of, you're sitting on a $16 billion surplus, how about, cutting off a little? How about working to find solutions? Nope. Just want to punish the blue city. Governor Brian Kemp did a lot of that when Keisha Lance Bottoms, a black woman, was mayor of Atlanta, Georgia. I do not forget that. And I'm sure Bill Torpey doesn't even. But I'm going to read Bill Torpey's op-ed with you for the first time together because he has the same reaction that I am to the thought of Keisha Lance Bottoms running as governor in the state of Georgia. He believes that she is a dream candidate for the Republican Party. He writes, Representative Lucy McBath rang the opening bell for the Democratic race for governor in early March when she said she was, quote, exploring a run for the job. By month's end, she had unrung that bell, saying she was, quote, suspending her campaign because of her husband's health. Into that vacuum stepped former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who is preparing her own run for Georgia's governor's mansion. She'd be a dream candidate, Torpy writes, for Republicans. Did I mention that she was mayor of Atlanta? I can see Republican strategists in their bunkers chortling with malicious glee. I envision this too, honestly. That's what y'all do, right? Y'all all get together at your little country club and your smoke-filled cigar rooms and all of that. Chortling with malicious glee while concocting the grainy black and white ads accompanied by sinister music and The Voice. Remember The Voice? He doesn't say The Voice, I do. The Voice. First, there's the ad of her shocking the public by suddenly announcing she would not run for a second term. The world was in a pandemic and the city was besieged by a wave of violent crime, but she didn't stick around to finish the job. I mean, that's Torpy's writing, and that's just the narrative that the GOP is going to run with, whether you agree or disagree with that assessment. Then there'd be a commercial showing the video of the Wendy's burning on University Avenue in June 2020 after a black man was killed by police outside the drive-thru. The scene became ground zero for the protest for Rayshard Brooks, the man shot to death in the parking lot there after attacking two cops trying to arrest him. Granted, the city had little control over the angry protest or a chance to stop the arson, but the scene degenerated into a no-man's land where armed vigilantes put obstacles in the road to stop motorists, not letting some through. Torpy writes, I went there on June 21st that year and visited the charred ruins with a friend as two young gunmen gave us a tour, sometimes pointing their guns at us, Torpy writes. Don't make any sudden moves or you will get shot, one of them told Torpy and his friend. It was so surreal and threatening that I had to write it up as a warning to Atlanta. Welcome to Mad Max in the ATL, a bizarre scene with a post-apocalyptic feel, Torpy wrote then. 2 weeks later, a car was fired upon near the checkpoint. Zachariah Turner, age 8, was shot and killed. Civil rights lawyer Mawuli Davis, who sued the city and Bottoms, said, quote, they did know and they chose to turn a blind eye to it and allow this to happen. The lawsuit is working its way through the courts. Remember, crime usually is right up there as an election issue, along with jobs and the economy. Granted, Bottoms had her on moments, Torpy writes. Days before the Wendy's burning, an angry Bottoms addressed people protesting the George Floyd killing and implored them to disperse after rioting ensued, saying, this is not a protest. This is not in the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. This is a chaos. If you care about this city, then go home, she said then. I remember that. About the year before all this, she made the usually cranky cops happy, giving them a raise that she had promised in her campaign. Bottoms, who said she'd talk when she makes her candidacy official, has a steep hill to climb, Torpy opines. Roy Barnes, Georgia's last Democratic governor, noted, anyone from the city of Atlanta is going to have a hard time. There's such a suburb versus city bias. And a state versus city bias, it's as old as the state. He's right. Yep, many a Paul has carved out a career beating up on Atlanta. As one might expect, former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin takes exception to that contention, saying, Atlanta is the capital city, adding that Bottoms has quite the resume and name recognition. I don't disagree, Mayor Franklin. Keisha Lance Bottoms does have name recognition. I don't know that that's the positive you think it is. Franklin said Bottoms left the city and later went to work on the Biden administration, noting that's a solid reason for leaving after just one term. But it's not like association with the Biden administration is a net positive in much of the country, even in blue states. 2 of the dozen people interviewed noted that Bottoms now has national connections. Oh. And what is that going to do for us in Washington right now? Torpy continues, however, I don't see anyone dusting off the former president and sending him down to Georgia to stump for Bottoms. And we all know, this is me talking here, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, when they came to Georgia, they couldn't brave leaving the blue bubble. Ooh, we're going to do a South Georgia bus tour. This is a huge criticism I've had with the Harris-Walz campaign, even after they did this bus tour, like in the immediate aftermath of doing this bus tour, that it was not a South Georgia bus tour. That was a Savannah Metro bus tour, and mostly Savannah proper. They didn't leave the Blue Haven. Do you envision Keisha Lance Bottoms going to Vidalia to stump? Rabun County? Forsyth County even? I mean, it's not a blue county anymore, but it's a metro Atlanta county. It used to be a sundown town. I don't see Keisha Lance Bottoms. Much like we didn't see Stacey Abrams campaigning outside these safe blue bubbles. Because she's got that Atlanta brand to her and the notoriety of being mayor of the city of Atlanta during a spike in crime. And look, the entire country had a spike in crime during COVID. And the civil unrest. And the city of Atlanta being the cradle of the civil rights movement in the country is always going to be an epicenter for civil rights action and activities and activism. Speaking of Abrams, former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin in the op-ed here pointed to Stacey Abrams' close race in 2018 against Brian Kemp as an example that anything can happen. It was an open seat. Quote, but there's clearly a benefit of being a white male with people thinking they're a leader, Franklin said, concerning the tight margin of victory. I mean, she's not wrong. There are still people who vote in this state and in this country, clearly we saw this last November, who will not vote for a competent black woman. Torpy points out, by the way, Abrams has not ruled out a third run, but that seems troubling for Democrats, I agree, considering she lost so badly in 2022. Black women are especially popular candidates in Democratic primaries and in Democrat-dominated Metro Atlanta. 4 of the 5 core Metro counties are led by black chairwomen. But again, Georgia is not Metro Atlanta, and you must win in November, he opines. This time, there is an open seat again in a midterm election where voters may have just had enough of Donald Trump and his MAGA lackeys. Democrats are excited and don't want to blow a good opportunity. Veteran Democratic State Senator Emmanuel Jones notes there's a, quote, wide open field, and a spirited primary is, quote, not particularly bad for Democrats. Would have been nice if we'd had one in 2024 for the presidency. But I'm not going to kick Joe Biden while he's retired. Other Dems mentioned in the race are former state senator and Jimmy Carter grandson Jason Carter, who ran for governor and lost in 2014. Former DeKalb County CEO Michael Thurman, he's the first black candidate to ever win a state seat. Labor commissioner from scratch, meaning he wasn't appointed first, but he also lost the U.S. Senate race. And State Senator Jason Estevez, that's my guy. That's who I'm riding right now. Who has an upside because he's a newcomer and can carve out a narrative. Concerning Bottoms, Torpy continues, Jones said, my question is she listening to herself or to the public? Because I haven't heard an outcry that Keisha Lance Bottoms should run. Exactly. And I'd say the same to Stacey Abrams. Thank you, ma'am, for all you've done. But consider something else. The Dems have a good open window in 18 months to climb through, or perhaps it slams on their fingers again. Bill Torpy finishes. That's I don't always agree with Bill Torpy. I think Bill Torpy was part of the push against Cop City. I vocally questioned that then because their parent company was supporting, still is, I'm sure, the Atlanta Police Foundation. But Bill Torpy's right. That he's got the gubernatorial race summed up just about pitch perfect, and notably regarding Keisha Lance Bottoms as well. I'm not sure if she were to run right now for the mayor's seat against the incumbent, Andre Dickens, who has his negatives as well, that she would win. If she can't win the city of Atlanta she once was mayor of, then why would anybody think she can win the governor's race? That is going to do it for today's Ron Show and for the week. Show notes, as always, at ronshowatl.com. The show airs 9 a.m., 5 p.m. on America One Radio, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn. And there is a weekend edition of this show that airs Progressive Voices, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.